G'day and welcome back to another episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups. On this episode, we're not going to be working on the Morris, we're going to be working on Grace, and I'm going to show you how to install a straight cut gearbox conversion. But before we do, let me finish my cornetto. Now, before we start this episode, I just want to do a quick shout out to my good mate, Paul Jeffries from Classic Mini Garage in the UK. He's the one that sent me this straight cut gear set. So, mate, I cannot thank you enough for doing that. I super appreciate it. Even though it did take a couple of weeks to get here, we finally got there in the end. So let's jump in and I'll show you guys how to do it. Now, it is worthwhile noting that there are a couple of different types of straight cut gearbox sets in which you can buy. And the set that Paul has sent me is a full 6-piece set. So it includes every gear, so first, second, third, fourth, including reverse and the Layshaft. Not only that, but he's also sent me a set of competition bulk rings. So these are a real cheap and inexpensive thing to change. At the same time, you've literally got everything else apart, so there's no point not changing them. Even if you just go the cheaper version, sometimes, you know, you can get away with it. We're here now, we might as well, like, why wouldn't we, essentially? Also, you want to be checking any sort of bearings as well inside the gearbox, anything that you destroyed on the way out, or just happens to have too much play, movements, noisy, whatever the case may be. Now, as you can see, my gearbox is completely stripped, so you can see it in other videos listed above, and on my channel, in which to get there, I figured it's pretty much been covered before. There's no point doing it again and again and again. So let's have a look and see what we need to do. Now, there are a couple of bearings in which we need to reuse. So let's just have a look at the Layshaft to start off with. So this is the original Layshaft. As you can see, it is a helical cut gear. So helical means that it is cut on an angle. Straight cut, you can see the clear difference. I'll try and put them side by side without all the bearings flying absolutely everywhere. So you can see the clear difference between the two. So first gear and reverse, which is the top one, they're both straight cut. Everything else on my left or your right is completely straight cut, whereas everything on this one is helical cut. Now, it is worthwhile noting that all Minis came out with a straight cut first gear and then chose to go to helical every other gear from there. So there are a couple of different types. 3-speed Synchro, for instance, so every gear but first has a Synchro, which means that it generally grinds in the gear, as you saw on the Morris Mini that I did quite a few years ago. Now, this new one, we need to have a look and see what we need to do. The first thing we need to do is have a look at the old one and see what bearings need to come out of it. So in the end of the old Layshaft, there are 2 bearings, so we need to reuse those. So where it came out in the larger end, you need to make sure it goes back inside there. That'll slide all the way down in there. Oh, okay, sorry, there we go. Yep, it'll only take 1 bearing, so it must be slightly larger on the inside diameter because of the setup, I would imagine. So we only need to replace 1. If it is a different size, make sure that you do get the right size bearings. So that's the larger end. At the small end, just here where first gear is and reverse, you've got a small bearing as well. There's only 1 inside there, so we'll take that one out and we grab the new Layshaft and we slide it inside there. Now, as you can see, that's not going to go in. That is completely loose and is not the right one to go. So we're going to get the other bearing and we're going to slide that inside there and make sure that it's the right one, which at the moment doesn't exactly feel like it is it. So what we now need to do is work out which is the bearing that we need to get. So I was unaware that they were different sizes, but it's not a problem. We can find something from Minisport before we end up moving forward. All right, so there are quite a few advantages of having straight cut gears. 1, it sounds cool. 2, it's stronger. And 3, why the hell not? It is quite an expensive set in which you can purchase to do this modification to your car. Now, you can also do straight cut drop gears, which sits on the opposite side here and work from the crankshaft all the way down through the gearbox. Now, if you want to go next level, that's probably what I would advise. But if it's just everyday driving, maybe straight cut is for you, maybe it's not. It is something that you really need to put up with the whine. So the whine you get is generally in most cars, Minis even in reverse. When you put in reverse, it makes that whining noise. That is going to be consistent through every single gear that you are in. When you get to 4th gear, it does level out because the ratio is 1 to 1, so it does quiet down a little bit. But for something that you do on an everyday drive, I'd probably not want to advise it unless you're only doing a short couple of Ks every day and you love thrashing the absolute crap out of it. Because I don't drive Grace all that often, and as you all know, she's on historic plates, I can actually get away with, you know, doing this modification. That's the exact reason why I'm going to do it. Simply because I know that even if it does bug me, the most amount of Ks I'm probably going to do is in the Ralston Classic, which is once a year. Other than that, I'm only doing shorter trips in it. I might do a couple longer trips during the year, but nothing like the Ralston Classic. So if you haven't already, make sure to check out the video in the link above. Now, for those of you watching at home, yes, this is a bar runner, so I do apologize. It is a Bendix one that I was given. So we're going to get the gear cluster and we're going to work on doing that. So this is first gear, and it works all the way through. So we're going to slide that selector off. This will only go one way as well, so make sure you take note of which way the sleeve is facing, so where my finger is compared to this side. So that'll face down because that came off first. Now we need to pull each of these apart, and as you can see here, there is a bearing protruding here. So we're going to take that one off first. That's going to sit off to the side like that, making sure that the bearing is okay inside there. Following that is going to be the bulk ring. So we're going to slide that off. That sits directly on there. Now, quickly talking about bulk rings. See how that bulk ring is sitting directly up against the dog teeth here? That is knackered. That is probably half the reason why it grinds whenever it goes inside first gear. So good thing we're throwing those in the bin. So the next thing is going to be this sucker just here. So I'm going to face that one facing down. Next one is going to be this here. Now, as you can see, it doesn't want to come off. So what do we need to do? How do we need to get it out? That is a very good question, and I will tackle that in just a moment. Now, I think from memory, this cone needs to slide completely off. So what we can probably do is stick it in the vise with a couple of rags around the end, and then just punch the end of that off. Then that will enable everything to slide directly off the end. As you can see here, this one here is actually pressed on, and from memory, we do need to turn it a little bit to be able to get it released. So we'll tackle that one in just a moment as well. Inside here are ball bearings and springs, and in which I've shown you guys how to also replace these. So it is worthwhile noting to make sure that you replace these as often as you can, especially when you have it all pulled apart. They are only a couple of dollars each, and you do need 6 springs, so 1 spring for each of the selectors and 1 bearing for each of the selectors. So there are 6 holes, so you need 6 bearings and 6 springs. I should also mention that the detent springs inside here are what enable it to have a really crisp, clean change between each of the gears, whether it be first, second, third or fourth, as well as going back into neutral. So this is what's going to enable it to have a nice, firm and smooth gear change. Also, have a look at this bulk ring here. See how much that bulk ring is pressed directly up against here? That is also shagged. If we go back over to the other side of where the other one is, let's just have a look here. So number 3 isn't too bad. You need to have a bit of a gap between there. I forget exactly what it is. I'll just put it on the screen down below. But yeah, that's pretty much cactus. They need to be a little bit further away than that. And that's what's going to help prevent the gears from grinding. Alright, so all I've done is stick it in the vise, and I just push down on the back of the hub just here to slide that collar off. So once again, that's only going to go on one way. That piece will then slide directly off. That'll go on anyway, I believe, and then the bulk ring as well. So pull it all apart and keep it all to the side. That way you know which way it came apart and how it goes together. Now comes the fun part of me remembering how to do this.
All the way into this space here, and then what happens after that is this right here gets rotated.
Alright, so the good thing about YouTube is you can go back and watch videos again and again and again. So essentially what Cole was just explaining there from Classic Mini DIY, I'll leave a link up in the description for his channel, is there are 2 detent springs. There's one here, and there's one 180 degrees opposite. So what we need to do is depress both of those, so push them inwards, then rotate this collar so it lines up with these teeth. Once it lines up with the teeth, it'll then release it. At the moment, the large gaps that are supposed to go in here are lined up with the back of here, holding it in. So like we did in the other part, when I remove the collar off the front here, I'm going to stick it in the vise, get a pick on either side, depress both of them, twist it around, and then move it to the spot, and then release it, and then it should come off. All right, so it took me quite some time, but I finally got there. Essentially, these 2 pins just here, oh, those bearings have just come apart. I wonder if that's supposed to be like that. I'm not entirely sure. It does look like it's been machined like that. So let's just pull those off and have a look and see if we can find them on Minisport if they need to be replaced. Yeah, nah. So I think those are actually broken because they are two different sides. Bit of a bummer. But anyway, we'll move those to the side. So essentially on here, there are two little detent springs. You need to push that in order for it to be released. Now, the little cone, this bit here, so there are little notches cut out at the top, but on the bottom, there are none. Essentially what it needs to do is slide down on there like that. They all need to line up on there. Once it gets to the bottom, it then twists, turns and locks in. How it locks in is with the aid of these little pins. So you need to make sure that you remove that in the correct manner. You'd literally have to get two picks in there, twist it, turn it, give it a pull, and then she comes out. But be very careful you don't lose these, because if you do, you're going to have a very, very bad time. So what we're going to do next is just pull it out, and then we should be able to pull the spring out there, hopefully. I might just try and get a small pick or a punch just to push the spring through. That's if it even comes out. Oh yeah, sweet. Okay, cool. So inside there we have a spring and we have essentially two plungers. The plunger lines up like that, and then it goes the same on the opposite side as well. So the two plungers need to face inwards. The plunger sits inside there, not the opposite way around like that. Going back to this bearing, I'm pretty certain that should not be like that. As you can see, the two sides don't even match up properly. Yeah, so it's completely broken. And you can see the machine face as well, that they're not completely smooth. So I can only assume somehow that those are broken. I could be completely wrong, but I'm going to look it up online and ask my good mate Paul Jeffries as well as Minisport just to see if we're right or completely wrong that those bearings are shagged. If it is, then we replace it. If they're not and it's meant to be like that, quite possibly we can put it back together. Now there is one more we need to do, essentially the exact same thing. So there is a detent spring. This has only got one actually. So there's one just here. So we're going to push that in, rotate it, line it up, and then pull it off. All right, so I was just literally looking up the answer to that question, and I realized that that bearing has to be two complete halves. If it was full, then it wouldn't be able to get past that notch. So it does need to be in half like that. So that is completely fine, and there is not a problem with that bearing. So let's work on getting this side off. All right, so as you can see, that one's lined up. You just got to be careful that the bearing and spring doesn't go flying out. So hopefully we've lined up all of those. Might need to give that a bit of a jiggle just to make sure that it's properly lined up and she's ready to go. Yeah, I think it's just off center just a fraction. So we're just going to work a pick around the outside there. Yeah, that feels like it's loose. All right, so it took a little bit of persuasion, but now we should be able to slide that all the way up. Once again, just make sure that detent doesn't go flying. That just fell out into my hand. So this has only got one, so that's really important to make sure that you keep that aside, like I said before. And we also have the spring inside here, so make sure that the spring is not damaged. Now this roller bearing here, that's all in one piece. One of the rollers just came out. We should be okay, hopefully. Probably the same one just came out. Anyway, we're going to keep that to the side. Hopefully that's all going to go back together all right. We'll just make sure that when I put it back in that it's going to not fall out. It should be okay. I think I'd probably upset it a little bit. So anyway, I'll just work on doing that, and then we can start the reassembly process with the new gear set. So all I'm going to do is put that bearing back on here. I'm going to refit that needle roller. Make sure that they're all in there. So I'm going to rotate it all the way around. Terrific. Now, which is the gear that just came off? I'm pretty sure it's this one. Okay, so what we need to do next is we need to get this gear and we need to fit it back onto the shaft. Before we do, then make sure that the spring hasn't gone anywhere. The spring's still inside here. Terrific. So we're going to get this one. We're going to put it to the side over here so we can get them mixed up. We're going to grab this one, and that'll slide directly on there. Once it's slid on there, we're then going to repeat the same process to put it back together. What we need to make sure of when we put it all back together is that we put the plunger back in. So let's do that first before putting that gear back on. So that'll sit in there directly like that. It should have spring tension. If you haven't, you've either got a problem with the spring or you don't have it in there properly. So that one will slide directly over there. Now's going to come the fun part of lining that back up. So unlike the other one, it doesn't go any particular way. I don't believe so anyway. This is the way that it came off. So the little dot faces upwards. That'll sit directly on there. Once we can line it up, there we go. We're just going to slide it down. We're going to push that pin in for us to be able to align it. So there's actually a notch cut out in that. So what I'm going to do is line up with there, grab a pick. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll push that in. And that's what enables it to go in properly with little to no effort. Okay, so she's going to be a little difficult. I'm just going to get a 90-degree pick. All right, so a bit of dicking around, I finally got it. I'm just going to rotate it now. There we go. Hear that audible click? That is now fitted. Terrific. So that's one. Now we've got to come back and do the opposite side. So first things first, I'm going to slide the spring back inside here. Yes, my hands are very, very oily, but it is what it is. So put the two halves of the bearing on. So those actually marry up quite well. I'm just going to slide it to the side like that. That way we're not going to have any issues. So the next part we need to install is going to be this one here. So we got the balk ring, outer ring as well. So we need to put that on, but what needs to go on first? So if we look at the gear sizing, so we're going from smallest to largest. So this was the one that we replaced. That'll be the next biggest one, followed by this one, followed by this one here. So we can start the reassembly process working backwards. So we're going to grab these two gears. Because they're opposing each other, we know that it's third and fourth. All right, so, oh, that's definitely not it. All right, so we're going to get the gear. We're going to slide it on. Now, I did just make a complete boo-boo, and I went to fit the wrong gear on there. I went to fit this one, and that's actually second gear. So I went to slide it on here, and you can have a look. See how it's completely loose? That means that it's not the right gear for that slot. So what we need to do now is we've got the gear on. We also need to put the balk ring on there as well. So number 4 we can do later because that comes off the very end. So we're going to grab our balk rings here, open them up, just give them a little bit of light oil for my fingers, and we're going to slide on. Now balk rings only go one way. So if you have it going the wrong way, that's the right way, obviously. If we try and fit it the opposite way, it's not going to go on. You can see the clear gap as well between the end of the balk ring and the gear itself. So that's exactly how it needs to be fitted. Next thing we need to do is make sure that we refit the plungers. So we're going to have to take that back off. Fit the two plungers. Make sure that the spring is still inside there, which it should be. This is when you need to be doc-ock and have 8 hands. So that'll sit directly in the middle there. Grab that one. Slowly put the gear on there. So just have to compress those plungers a little bit and slide it all the way down. Now, before we go further, grab your balk ring, slide it on, and then the tricky bit. So once again, it's got a flat edge with one edge here, and then it's got the notched edge facing upwards. So the notched edge face upwards, push that down there, and now comes the fun part again of doing the exact same thing. So essentially the idea is to put pressure on it and try to push it all in at once. Now we don't need to worry about that balk ring just yet because we've already got, we haven't fitted everything just yet. So what I might actually do here is I'm going to remove the gear and the collar. So I'm going to lift it up, slide that in, So you compress both sides, hopefully that's going to work. So you just have to put pressure on one side to stop it flying out. I'm going to push that all the way in. You're going to lift that gear up. Ooh. This is where, as I said, you need dock hands to be able to get this in. So the idea of this is we're going to remove the gear and we're going to fit that ring at the same time. Hopefully there should be enough for it to be able to slide all the way back on. This is going to be a pain, I can see it. Alright, so I have it locked in. I don't think there's a leading edge on this one, which is a little frustrating, but we can work it out. So what I might do is put this little notch facing one of them. Hopefully that's going to make it somewhat easier. I don't think it's actually going to, but never know. So I'm going to push that all the way down. Right, so reassembling this, you actually have 2 dots, one on either side of the gear. So all you need to do is put this on there, line up those 2 dots with the holes. You are then going to be pushing them down, or sorry, pushing them in as you slide the ring down. That will enable the detents to be able to be depressed, therefore enabling you to put this on. Now, I know it does sound impossible, but you can do it. So you need some really, really small punches, which, I don't even think I have. I'll just have a look. Yeah, I should be able to get a couple of picks in there. Hopefully that'll do just fine. Alright, so this thing is an absolute mission to be able to do, but once it's in, give it a turn. There we go. And it's locked itself in. So you heard it snap into gear. Bearings are turning smoothly. Perfect. So balk ring needs to go on next. Now, what is the next part in which we need to assemble it? Let's have a bit of a look-see here, shall we? Sorry, this is 2nd gear, that's 3rd gear. 4th gear is this one here. So I completely muddled up all of the gear selections. Essentially what you want to do is make sure that the lipped edge, so this one here, is facing downwards. That way it actually recesses inside there. So it's actually going to marry all the way up against there. Otherwise it's going to push too much load this way. It's going to bring it further away from there and it's not going to go on properly. So we need to get 1st gear. So we're going to move that. We'll take that bearing out, nice and easy. Make sure all the rollers are in there, put that off to the side. We're going to grab the bearing, slide it in through there. Now we're almost there, cool. So that's now off to the side. Actually, we didn't have to do that, sorry, that's my complete bad. Put those off to the side. What we need to do is get the Synchro hub. Now, once again, this will only go one way. If we fit it the wrong way, we're going to know about it pretty quickly. Essentially, this will denote which way it goes and which way it slides. So essentially, that needs to be facing forward. This bit needs to be facing backwards. What we need to do, so this edge needs to face backwards, the larger edge needs to face forwards. Alright, so I was completely wrong about that. Essentially, you want to make sure that the raised edge here is facing the raised edge here. When you go to line up the tools, you want to make sure that they are lined up with the hole. So let's grab the tool, the Synchro hub installation tool, and let's get to fitting the new bearings and springs. All right, now a little Tomo's tech tip here is my good mate Paul Jeffries taught me this. When you buy these, buy yourself bloody dozens of them, because chances are you're going to lose them and they're going to go flying, they're going to go bouncing in the workshop, you're not going to know where they are, you're going to have a bad time, you're going to be searching for them. Then when you move out in 7 years time, you're going to find them all over the floor. As I said, these are quite inexpensive and you need 3 per Synchro hub. So there's 3 springs and there's also 3 bearings. These were sent to me by the good guys down at Minisport. So what we need to do, and I'm pretty sure I've shown you guys how to use this before, you want to grab the tool and slide it directly inside here. Now you've got 3 openings, so each of the openings needs to have a spring in there. So we're going to put a spring in either side, sorry, either one of them should I say. It is then going to line up with the 3 openings. You're then going to grab each of the bearings and slide it directly down inside there. The awkward moment when you just realize that you put the wrong balls in there, lol. Alright, so you want to make sure that you're using the correct balls, so 1 in each of them. Once they're all in, you then want to be grabbing the hub. Now, like I said, you want to make sure that you align the openings with it. You're going to give it a twist. Now it'll only generally twist one way, so you're going to twist it probably about 1/3 of a turn. You're going to flip it over, grab yourself a hammer, or even just something firm to push on. So in my case, I'm just going to use a brass drift. Give it a tap, all the way down, and she's installed. That's all you need to do. Then we can start the reassembly process for the rest of this. All right, so once we've installed that, we're then going to reinstall the hub over there. Next thing we need to do is install that sucker all the way down there, and then we can keep going with the reinstallation process. I'm going to stick this in the in the vise. I'm going to clamp this bit here and then just push that all the way down using a brass drift.